So, the annual Destiny 2 showcase went down yesterday at the time of recording this video, and this was a big one. There was a lot leading up to it. I myself struggled on how to set my own expectations accordingly, between some post-Light 4 disappointment, the stale seasonal structure, but putting that against the conclusion of a 10-year saga and its endgame moment. There was a sentiment out there that this showcase was make or break for the future of not just Destiny 2, but Destiny as a franchise. I was never fully on board with that, but it was definitely a very important showcase both for Destiny and Bungie. For a game this big, in live service territory, it is uncharted territory to be entering the 10th consecutive year of content in a franchise with no break in between. So, did Bungie pull it off and get the player base back on side and hyped about the future of Destiny? Well, the truth is, I can only speak for myself, and that showcase gave me a sense of optimism and cautious excitement about the present and future of Destiny. There's a lot to tackle from the showcase, but where I really want to start is the future, as in post-final shape future. If there was one collective agreement, it's that seasonal structure had become stale, predictable, and not a ton of fun. Which is funny, just as every other franchise starts to adapt into seasons, Bungie is moving away from it. So, what are we getting? Well, seasons are being replaced by what Bungie are calling episodes. These are standalone experiences that are going to act and expand on the aftermath of the final shape. Each episode is going to be split into 3 6-week acts. Each act promises new quests, activities, stories, and weapons. Each episode will have new armor, exotic weapons, and exotic mission. There are going to be 3 episodes: Echoes, Revenant, and Heresy. Each playable as a standalone experience according to Bungie. This really excites me. Seasons by their own nature are very restrictive, and what I hope is with these acts there's no time gating stories on a weekly basis, more a case that they just run for 6 weeks at a time. But there's really a lot of potential here. A reason we've reached seasonal burnout is because 3-month seasons requires time gating, an activity that has aspects gated to it to keep you coming back each week, a design in the activity that gives it longevity. Usually, the novelty of an activity is gone by the time the story concludes in week 8, meaning the back end of the season is always a lull. This new approach gives Bungie way more freedom in how they design their activities, how they want to tell their stories. It kind of reminds me of the way Final Fantasy XIV does their post-expansion patches, with narrative dressing that can either tie up loose threads from an expansion or serve as a prelude to what comes next. Last month I did a video on why I think it's time for Destiny 3, and despite some of those points still being valid, this new approach does a lot to put me at ease about how I feel about the future post-final shape. Of course, the way in which Final Shape concludes will have a huge influence on the audience's appetite for more Destiny 2, but this new approach to me is a massive step in the right direction, and one I wouldn't be surprised to see more studios follow Bungie's direction to stop that seasonal fatigue setting in. I just really hope that with this approach, there is no ask to wait every single week for small bits of story, and instead have this large chunk, if not all of it, there to experience day one, and it just runs for 6 weeks instead. I also think that after being so impressed with Deep Dive and early impressions of this season's activity, it gives the team a lot of flexibility to really play the sandbox in newer ways we're seeing expand on, rather than trying to design something to keep our attention spans for 3 months, which is so difficult. I still have questions like, what does this mean for both raids and dungeons going forward? Are these episodes going to be vaulted, when it seems that they're one-off impactful stories? What's the load like in terms of the release? Is it still time gated? But on the whole, I'm overwhelmingly positive on the episodes. I've seen the sentiment that these are still just seasons, but I think that's misplaced and misunderstood. Unless I'm the one that doesn't understand. But yeah, episodes, 2 thumbs up on this change. I think it's really good. Alright then, Final Shape. Let's begin. Well, I mean, that first trailer, come on. All the feels and the chills, and I only really entered the franchise with Destiny 2 and its Red War campaign. The Ghost monologue, the key moments leading up to this fight against the Witness, seeing the whole Vanguard reunited, the plethora of different looking Guardians, it really hit, it was special. That opening trailer, it was sensational. But Nostalgia and fanfare aside, did the final shape actually look any good? Yeah, I think it did. I've already seen the calls about it just being a reskin and the retelling us content from exotics to locations, but I don't think you understand how game development works, if that's the case, because I don't, but I certainly know that it's not as simple as that. Plus, if there was one expansion where narrative is a fair excuse for giving us old locations for a new purpose, I'd argue the finale of a 10-year saga is a pretty acceptable one. So, we're going inside the Traveller's Pale Heart, or to the Traveller's Pale Heart. One thing that I'm really curious about was Joe Blackburn being like, hey, it's going to be mission after mission after mission. No going off to play PvP or banking some gambit modes. You have one job, and that's to stop the witness. I'm all about that. I have enough faith in Bungie that they're going to tie up the final shape in a satisfying manner. With that means the whole crew. I'd be lying if I said that I felt the same way about Destiny's core cast as I did the MCU's prior to Endgame. But it isn't far off. Cade coming back is so exciting, and for the whole cast there is a lot they can do in terms of payoff for many of its central characters and its moments. As a hunter, you can't help but be happy to see Nolan North's Cade back and the potential for his moments with Crow as well. The way in their marketing and trailers really made it feel that the whole universe is coming together for one last battle with the Witness, and that gets me very excited. As for the story and what we're going to be doing itself, well, Bungie kept a lot of that under wraps, and whilst at the time it left me feeling just whelmed, I'm really happy that they did. I want it to be kept shrouded and secret just like Endgame. You don't get these moments often in video games to conclude these kind of stories that have been told for so long, and I hope Bungie can pull it off. I think they will. As for other things, few Destiny 1 weapons coming back, which, I never got to try considering I barely played Destiny 1, and it was a Destiny 1 weapon Thorn that got me so invested in the franchise in the first place. I'm excited to check those out. Of course, a few new exotics coming, but more interestingly, very support-based ones, like an auto rifle that heals now. That's definitely new and interesting.
Go, 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 go.
If there was one disappointment I had, or two, it comes from the supers, and just one new enemy type. I, like many, expected a third Darkness subclass. And look, it's fine that we didn't get that, as far as we know anyway, but I was just whelmed by what we did get. It of course makes sense that being inside the Traveller, we instead get our light boosted as opposed to attuning with more darkness, but even a fourth light subclass would have been so cool. Maybe even playing on like a support subclass that, like actual light itself as a yellow subclass, but that's just wishful thinking from me. One new enemy is extremely disappointing to me. Don't get me wrong, from a visual perspective and gameplay, they look an excellent addition. And I'm sure during the Legendary Campaign playthrough, they're going to make me scream. But I was hoping for more. Maybe not an entirely new enemy faction or race, but even a few more variants, even if only in visual design. It's one of my biggest pain points of the last few years, is just how samey the enemies have been. For as good as Destiny's gunplay and sandbox is, new enemies, even if just visually different, would really benefit just from my own retention and excitement. It was said that the main campaign would present a satisfying conclusion to the saga, but the raid is effectively the end point. I kept making a prediction with my own fire team that they may do something like a 12-man raid to end it all, and, well, I don't think that's the case. They did confirm that the battle against the Witness will be the raid boss, and I'm of two minds on this. They confirmed that there'll be a day one raid race for World's First, and look, that's exciting, it really is. But this is also the conclusion of the saga. I don't want to experience the end through someone else's raid first race. My hope is that the raid is approachable from all points of view. They said that you don't need to play the raid to get a satisfying conclusion, so I'm a little confused on the messaging when the Witness is the final boss. I'm sure we'll get more answers closer to the time, but yeah, that's a real tricky one for Bungie to balance. If contest mode is on for the entire weekend the raid launches, I'll be disappointed. I like a challenge, but our fire team isn't quite equipped for contest mode. I don't know, but I hope that there is a way for everybody to take part. There are also a few neat features in terms of quality of life. The LFG looks excellent in terms of its offerings, how casual you want to be, what you're after, how long do you have. That's due to arrive next season, and that's a massive quality of life improvement. My first raid was doing Garden of Salvation with some randomers that was so toxic that I nearly never played Destiny 2 again after that. But I quickly learned that although every community has its fair share of dickheads, the Destiny 2 has a lot of good eggs. One thing I spoke a lot about to my raid gang was the idea of the Destiny content vault. Could we see Red War brought back, etc., so people could catch up before the final shape? What we got was something in the middle. We're getting one mission from each expansion surrounded by some narrative dressing to help catch players up, or we experience some of Destiny's major moments. This was needed, and although I still don't think it's enough for me to be able to say to someone, hey, come and try Destiny 2 for the first time, potential lapsed players, it should do the trick for. I think for anyone getting into Destiny, post-final shape is still your best bet. As for Season of the Witch, well, I started last night. Terrific first impressions on what the story is going to offer. The activities are off to a flyer, though admittedly, we say this every season, so I need to let the novelty wear off a little before I render any judgment, but as a huge fan of Season of the Deep, outside of the usual seasonal slowdown and drip feed, and this season seems to be taking everything that worked last season and doubling down. A roguelite deck builder featured in Destiny 2, Savathun coming back, more adventures on the Throne World, and possibly ending in a showdown with Xivu Arath. Yeah, I'm in. Oh yeah, and Crota's End, a raid that I've never done before, being reprised for free. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this season. So, on the whole, yeah, I really enjoyed the showcase. I think it lacked that one big oomph moment. But at the same time, had it had that, from a final shape point of view, it may have taken away from the final shape itself. I've seen the conversation that if they don't want to talk too much about the final shape, then don't say anything at all. I disagree. I thought it was a great showing. Ultimately, post-final shape, it's hard to tell where I'll be at, because it depends on how they stick the landing. But I can't help but feel good about the franchise's future both now and beyond the final shape. You have to remember that it's an achievement in itself that Bungie deserves commending for, that they have run a saga and story for 10 consecutive years. And despite plenty of blunders, it's still the service that every man and his dog strives to be. Destiny 2 offered us a glimpse into its future beyond this climactic event, and I for one think I'll be ready to venture into the unknown territories for quite some time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button. I would really appreciate it. If you're after more Destiny 2 content, check out my video on what makes this game so special to me. Oh, and hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Let me know in the comments down below how you're feeling post-showcase. Have a terrific day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Eyes up, Guardians.